Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores a goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
Hey there, and a big welcome into the GSMC Soccer Podcast. Happy Monday. Well, maybe not happy for you. Hopefully this podcast makes it a bit better. An exciting weekend in the world of soccer. We'll dive into the biggest matches from the weekend, what it means for the leagues moving forward. Also, we've got a really exciting Bundesliga race to dive into. We'll dive into that a little bit later in the show. Serie A, Juventus. Can Ronaldo carry Juventus to Champions League glory? Because it looks like he will carry them to another Serie A title. But is there enough talent around him to help him achieve Champions League glory at another club outside of Real Madrid? It's a big show. It's a fun show. It's the Monday show. It's the recap show. We're about ready to dive into it. But before we do, please give us a follow. GSMC_soccer on Twitter. Facebook is GSMC Soccer. Give it a like there. I'm your host, Lukas Moore. Let's go ahead and dive right into it. The premier match of the weekend, the Liverpool versus Manchester United. Liverpool, 2-0 win, really a 1-0 win. Manchester United pulls the keeper late. Salah slots one in the 93rd minute. But a beautiful header in the 14th for Liverpool puts them ahead, gives them the 2-0 lead, and Jurgen Klopp's men go to 21 wins on the year, 64 points now in the league, a whole 16 points clear of Manchester City after their disappointing weekend. It is a massive gap. So 538, one of the best statistical analysis sites for any sport, and specifically soccer, because it's so hard to compare leagues and all these things. They put right now the odds of Liverpool winning the Premier League at 99%. I mean, more than 99%. They don't even put a decimal point on it. This is so certain to be Liverpool. And the rest of the Premier League, they're not helping themselves either. Man City with a disappointing weekend. Leicester City with a disappointing weekend. They're all falling behind. And Manchester United now in 5th. They thought they had themselves some opportunities. Maybe a Marcus Rashford being there. Manchester United did have its opportunities in this match. Maybe if Marcus Rashford, we talked about that injury just before the weekend back on Friday and how important that would be for Manchester United. And this is a match where Man United had 4 shots on goal, but they were really good opportunities. And maybe if you had that frontline attacking player, that high value attacking player in Marcus Rashford, maybe Manchester United finds a way to get points out of this thing. But Liverpool continues its dominance, continues its team play, their belief in their manager. And I've kept saying this, and every single time I watch Liverpool, I believe it more and more. Jurgen Klopp has somehow figured out the German national team formula for their World Cup victories in 54, 74, 90, and 2014, to where there isn't a single dominant player, but instead a lot of high-end B+ to A level players that are all playing together, that believe in the system, that play for each other, that fill their roles. Defenders who not only defend at an elite level, but distribute at an elite level. They figured out this style that has allowed the Germans, a nation with plenty of outstanding players, but if you're going to rank the top 5 soccer players of all time, maybe one of them is German. It's not exactly a superstar creating powerhouse type of country, right? And the Bundesliga is the 4th or 5th best league in the world, maybe 3rd in some arguments. It just doesn't make much sense to why the German national team is able to consistently be one of the better performing teams in the world, but it's because of that team attitude. It's how soccer is meant to be played. And he somehow transferred it into the Premier League, the top flight league in the world. He's transferred it into a team that had an infusion of money, an infusion of belief, and Liverpool is going to win its first Premier League since 1990. And it's exciting. It's beautiful. I can't believe I'm seeing this happen at this type of level. The Germans taking over the Premier League. Not necessarily the players on the field, but the style, the manager. It feels very German to me, the efficiency of it all. And they continue their beautiful form with a beautiful win against Manchester United. So much fun to watch Liverpool do this week in and week out. Defense fantastic. Let's check out Liverpool's form. So, they played Tottenham, 1-0 win. Everton, 1-0 win. Sheffield United, 2-0 win. Wolverhampton, 1-0 win. And then they beat Leicester City, a team that's right now in third place in the Premier League, 4-0 back on December 26th. Yeah, and in this 2-0 win against Manchester United. Do that math, that's 6 straight games where they don't give up a goal. And it's not because they are elite defensively and they park the bus. No, they play soccer. The best defense is offense. They are on the front foot. They are controlling the game. They put you into space. They play as a team, and they have just figured this whole thing out. And they figured it out so much. They are such a machine that every team they play knows they're a machine, and it kind of gets in their head a little bit before the game. You saw that in Manchester United. They had some open chances. They had some opportunities in this match to score goals. And it felt like those players thought this was going to be their only opportunity to match. They push it left, they push it right, they push it over the crossbar. Some layups, really, for Manchester United they missed in this one. And Liverpool is just at that level of dominance where they might even be beating teams just because they say they're Liverpool. And people know that they're going to come out. They're not going to make mistakes. They're going to play their style, and they're going to do it at a high efficiency. It's beautiful to watch, and the fact that Liverpool now flying at the top of the Premier League, so much fun. And this is really opening up for Liverpool, and this has to be scary for Arsenal fans who don't want another team to go through an entire Premier League season without a loss, because right now this is the upcoming schedule for Liverpool in the Premier League, and this is just embarrassing. Well, it's not really embarrassing, it's what's in front of them, but it's going to be embarrassing, I think, for these teams, because Liverpool's just on a different level than Wolverhampton, their next match on Thursday. Then they head to the FA Cup on a Sunday to play Shrewsbury. They might not even need to play a single starter. They're going to most likely win that one. They can rest players in the FA Cup. Then they play West Ham. That should be a win. Then they play Southampton at home. That should be a win. Norwich City at the bottom of the table. That's a win. And this is such an advantage for Liverpool, also for the Champions League, because they don't really have an intense match, a match that should drain energy, a match where you need to use all of your frontline players leading into the February 18th Champions League clash against Atletico Madrid. Atletico's looked pretty good in Spain recently, but if Liverpool coming off this schedule is rested, ready to go, they avoid major injury, that should be Liverpool's tie in the round of 16 against Atletico. And then you move on the Premier League schedule more. West Ham again, this time at home at Anfield. They haven't lost at Anfield over 3 years in the Premier League. Then Watford at home for Liverpool. Then Bournemouth. Then they play the next Champions League match, so unfair to Atletico again. Atletico's like, hey, can Liverpool play Man City? Can they play somebody that's going to give them a challenge leading into our match so that they're not rested and raring to go heading into our Champions League match? That one on March 11th. Then they play Everton, somewhat of a tough game. Crystal Palace, much better opponent. And then they play Manchester City. It should be a walk into the month of April for Liverpool. I don't see them losing or drawing a match until the month of April when they play Manchester City, maybe in mid-March to Everton or Crystal Palace. Maybe there's a draw there. It has opened wide up for Liverpool after this victory against Manchester United. They're going to go for it. And there's a real opportunity that Liverpool gets this invincible season. Now, they are not unbelievably dominant in terms of goal scoring because they're not unbelievably dominant in terms of talent. There's so many great players on Liverpool, but they are a great team. They are not a great collection of individuals. I think Manchester City has better talent across the board, and that's why when you look at some of these football rankings, Manchester City is so close, but they are not the same type of team that Liverpool is. And that's what makes this run so beautiful from the front runners in the Premier League. It's opening right up for Liverpool. Will be exciting every single week. Might not get a chance to talk about Liverpool for a while because of the stretch that they're heading to. Are we going to spend time on this show talking about the matchup against Wolverhampton? I'm not sure. Wolverhampton needs to do something special. It'll need to be a miracle over the next 2 months if any team in the Premier League has any hope of knocking off the frontrunners in the Premier League. Manchester United was on the losing end of that match. We talked about this on the show a couple weeks ago, that it's time for Manchester United fans and the media that talk about Manchester United to completely change their expectations, and I started to hear it from the media. We'll talk about that on the other side of the break. You're listening to the GSMC Soccer Podcast.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Big welcome back into the GSMC Soccer Podcast. I'm your host, Lucas Moore. Give us a follow on Twitter at GSMC_soccer. Facebook as well, GSMC Soccer, a Monday, a beautiful Monday. By the way, news about this podcast, we are moving to 2 times a week. No more Wednesday show. On Monday, we'll release an episode for the GSMC Soccer Podcast. Same on Friday. The reason for this is because I have now joined GSMC in another area, on the baseball podcast. So those of you that are also baseball fans, those episodes release on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, sometime in the evening. So give that a follow as well, and check out all the podcasts across the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find just about anything, music, relationships, etc. Just check it out, GSMC Podcast Network. So much great content that we are producing, and the baseball one's exciting because there's a lot of scandal right now, but I also think we're setting up for a really intriguing Major League Baseball season all around the country. That's going to be a lot of fun. But what we talked about just before the break, Liverpool, Manchester United, one of the great rivalries in the Premier League, one of the great rivalries in soccer around the world, didn't feel like much of a rivalry because of Liverpool's dominance, both in the Premier League and against Manchester United, a 2-0 victory. And now we talk about Manchester United as, we've always talked about Manchester United as one of the top teams in England. And I've told this story on a past podcast that one of the first soccer balls I ever purchased had a Manchester United logo on it because it was the only soccer ball that was available to buy at a Big Lots or wherever I was. In the middle of America, in a small town in Ohio, Manchester United dominated soccer conversation, soccer headlines, all of it. Manchester United was about as high of a level as you can get for any club in the world. Truly beautiful what Manchester United was able to accomplish under Sir Alex Ferguson. And we've been waiting since the retirement of Sir Alex Ferguson for Manchester United to regain this form as if they are a Real Madrid, as if they are a Bayern Munich, as if they are Barcelona, or these teams that have had success since the 80s, the 90s, the thousands, into the 2010s. Just every decade, we expect them, even when they fall off, to always bounce back. And unfortunately, that's not what Manchester United is anymore. They are no longer one of the elite clubs in the world, although they will throw some money around as if they are one of the elite clubs in the world. The development system isn't there. And it feels like Manchester United is going to be missing at the top of the Premier League for a long time to come. They've fallen behind in their own city to Manchester City. It has been a quick turn. I'm not sure they've made a good managerial decision since Sir Alex Ferguson. It's a rough place for Manchester United. And I said on this show a couple weeks ago that we needed to change our expectations for Manchester United. We needed to change what we think about them and how we judge their performances. Because if Manchester United didn't win the Premier League for such a long time, it was an abject failure. If they didn't beat Liverpool twice, it was a failure. The expectations were sky high. for Manchester United. And I said that these needed to change because there just simply aren't that anymore. The Premier League has run by them. And maybe someday in the future, some manager, some group of executives can figure this thing out again for Manchester United and they can reclaim old glory. But at least for this year and the next 2 or 3 years, Manchester United is at the level of Tottenham or is at the level of Leicester City or Chelsea. I wouldn't even put them up at Chelsea. They're a team that should try to compete for the Champions League, maybe make the round of 16 of the Champions League, be competitive, be there, have a few star players, buy some guys, be in the mix, always, just in the mix. That should be their goal. And I think if we adjusted those expectations for Manchester United, it wouldn't feel so disappointing every time they go out and have a poor result. Every time they draw an FA Cup, forced to replay that FA Cup, bring on their star player in an FA Cup replay, get them hurt for 6 weeks, and now they might have to dip into the transfer market to replace Marcus Rashford. It's a mess. But I think these expectations have actually changed. Because, I'm watching the coverage around Manchester United and Liverpool, and I actually heard this come out of somebody's mouth, which was beautifully surprising to me. And I think that everybody is starting to jump on this train of shifting the expectations for Manchester United and forgetting about them being an elite club in the world. And one of the NBC Sports, you just around, and I heard the media say, hey, this is good for Manchester United. They competed, they were there. They had their chances. If they get a win, they're this close to the Champions League spot. It's not that bad. That's exactly how we should be having the conversation with Manchester United. It's not that bad. They were close. They're hanging around 5th or 4th. Let's see if they can get in that 4th spot, maybe 3rd. That'd be a great season. And hopefully Manchester United fans are on board with that. I don't think they are because they're so used to being Manchester United. And it's just going to be tough for them to swallow. But I think that the media as a whole is starting to really come on this path of Manchester United is a team that's just trying to compete for Champions League. And maybe, just maybe, if everything clicks, they'll finish 2nd. And what a change that is from where they were back in the 2000s into the 2010s. Really interesting, that shift and that change. Another disappointing result for Manchester United. But hey, they were competitive against Liverpool, who clearly is now the better of the two. So good for them, good for Manchester United. And hey, they'll compete for the Champions League moving forward. Just tough to see that Marcus Rashford wasn't available. I think he would have made this game much more interesting. Tough to see that he gets hurt in an FA Cup replay. Why are we playing these things? That's something that I'm not sure I understand. If I were a manager, I would, if we're heading to a replay, it's just, you just can't let it get to that point. There's already too many matches in the Premier League. A lot of the players have said so. It's an absolute grind. It causes players to get injured down the stretch for a huge match that people in America were excited to tune into. You don't have one of the best players on the pitch because he came on and got hurt in an FA Cup replay. Tough to see, but a fun game to watch. We had another fun match over the weekend. It was a great weekend in soccer. Real Madrid versus Sevilla. We talked about how big this match was for the La Liga standings moving forward. Sevilla coming in at 4th right now in La Liga. They were competitive. An interesting match with some VAR drama against Real Madrid. We'll break down that huge La Liga match on the other side of the break. You're listening to the GSMC Soccer Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Big welcome back into the GSMC Soccer Podcast. I'm your host, Lucas Moore. Social media, hit us up. I've mentioned it a few times. I'll mention it again. At GSMC_soccer on Facebook. GSMC Soccer. Find us there for all the podcast releases, news, some shares, all those beautiful things for GSMC Soccer. Real Madrid versus Sevilla, according to 538, was the most important / highest quality match of the weekend. And that's because Barcelona and Real Madrid are tied at the top of La Liga, and they are still tied after the weekend. Barcelona surviving a 1-0 win against Granada. We'll talk about that on the other side of the next break when we dive into what Real Madrid needs to try to secure this La Liga title, which I think is theirs for the taking, with Barcelona making the managerial change, their manager getting a first win. But this was a huge match for Real Madrid. Sevilla, a good squad, 35 points heading into this one. They were only 5 points behind Real Madrid. They have good players like De Jong, and De Jong ended up scoring in this one in the 64th minute. He also had a goal disallowed. And this is where I don't like VAR being applied. It was a foul away from the ball that the ref didn't see, that they went and then changed, which disallowed the goal. And that's just too many things to change. And I think that if you don't catch it immediately, this is why we don't need this, especially in the sport of soccer. It takes out the rhythm. It would have taken out a really interesting match. Real Madrid would have really had to open it up if Sevilla were able to knock that goal home. But instead, Casemiro adds 2 goals in the second half, and Real Madrid wins 2-1, picking up a massive 3 points for them. A hugely important match for Real Madrid to keep pace with Barcelona, who had an easy match against Granada in the middle of the table. Granada in 10th right now, staying at 10th after their loss to Barcelona. And Real Madrid, they look great everywhere except that final portion. It's just Real Madrid does not have that frontline striker, that guy that they can rely on. But Casemiro, this lineup is just deadly for Real Madrid. Vasquez, Rodrigo, Casemiro, Luka Modric, Toni Kroos, Marcelo, Varane, Carvajal, Courtois in goal. This is just an amazing lineup. And to me, they are this close to unlocking their potential. If they had a player like, Cristiano Ronaldo still on their team, Real Madrid would be, right now, the frontrunners, arguably, to win the Champions League again. They are truly missing Cristiano Ronaldo. So a shame maybe if you're a Real Madrid fan that he's with Juventus. I think it makes the Champions League more interesting. I think it makes my job a little more interesting to be able to have multiple teams competing with multiple star players, and Real Madrid forced to make some changes to try to figure this whole thing out. But it's just not working for Jovic at top. Luka Jovic did great, did amazing in the Bundesliga, and he was bought for a lot of money. But right now he's just not getting it done. 4 starts, just 1 goal. You got to be better at Real Madrid. You have to be better when Luka Modric and Casemiro and Toni Kroos are feeding you the ball. You have to do better. As a frontline striker, it has to be better at Real Madrid. And we just got big news and notification on the show. We'll actually dive into this news because it relates to the topic on the other side of the break. It relates to Timo Werner. And this ties right into our Real Madrid conversation. Really, really interesting rumor coming from the German magazine Bild. We'll dive into that on the other side of the break. It's actually really cool that this just broke during the show. But we'll take a break so that I can actually dive into this, because this is huge, huge news. It relates to Real Madrid. It also relates to Liverpool, who we talked about in the beginning of the show. But Real Madrid, big win against Sevilla. I just think they are this close to unlocking their true potential, and their true potential is being the best team in Europe. Getting Timo Werner, I think, would be a huge addition to making Real Madrid the best team in Europe. But Real Madrid and Timo Werner might not be a match made in heaven. A big European club has their eyes set on Werner, and Werner has his eyes set on them. We'll talk about that on the other side of the break. You're listening to the GSMC Soccer Podcast.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Big welcome back in, GSMC Soccer Podcast. Okay, here it is. News broke. I mentioned it just before the break. Timo Werner, there's been rumors flying around about Real Madrid. How Real Madrid wants Timo Werner. He fits perfectly into their 4-3-3 formation. German nationals have really worked at Real Madrid. Toni Kroos is the biggest example in the starting lineup. He'll fill in for Luka Jovic. He'll be that frontline striker, the guy that puts the ball in the back of the net. And he had another great weekend with RB Leipzig. But the problem is, we heard some rumors in September that Timo Werner wasn't necessarily interested in Real Madrid. You thought that those tides have changed as we moved into January. And if Real Madrid wants a player, Real Madrid usually gets a player. But instead, Timo Werner says that he prefers a move to Liverpool over the summer. So it looks like Timo Werner is not going to leave RB Leipzig in this transfer window in the month of January or February. It looks like he's going to try to stay and win a German title with RB Leipzig, see how far they go in the Champions League. But he prefers a move to Liverpool. That is absolutely massive, and that is terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. And Liverpool were able to get their hands on Timo Werner, who right now, to me, is one of the best pure goal scorers in the world right now. What he's doing in the Bundesliga is excellent. He's leading Leipzig to the top of the table. Leipzig to the top of the table. And I think he's going to be key for Germany in what is a really tough group in the European championships this summer. Although it is in Munich, their group, remember the Euros split to 12 host cities. I think Timo Werner is going to be a huge, huge portion of the German, what I expect, bounce-back success in the Euros this summer. But if he goes to Liverpool, oh my Lord. I mean, this would be unfair. I don't even know where he would go in the Liverpool lineup. So Liverpool right now running the 4-3-3 on their front line. Mane, Firmino, and Salah. So Salah, one of the world's best. Mane, one of the world's best. Firmino, one of the world's best. Where do you even put him? If he goes to Liverpool, this is just, oh man. It's one of those moves that you can't really put an adjective on, right? It's like an NBA free agent. You say, oh, what if this player would have played with this player? Or back in the 90s, what if Michael Jordan and Hakeem Olajuwon were on the same team? It just doesn't compute for a lot of Americans. But the beautiful thing about European soccer is the best club in the world can add one of the best strikers in the world. And if Timo Werner is a part of Liverpool heading into next season, everybody in the Premier League should be shaking in their boots because he really fits Jurgen Klopp's style. I've been talking about how he fits what Real Madrid is trying to do under Zinedine Zidane. He fits even better with Liverpool. And I mentioned the Liverpool German mentality, that team mentality, that not relying on star players mentality. Well, I mean, Timo Werner's German. He's going to get that about better than about everybody else on this Liverpool roster. He'll be able to communicate with his manager well. I think this would be great for the German national team because Jurgen Klopp will bring the best. We've seen him develop so many great young players. Werner only 23 years old. We saw him develop Götze. We saw him develop Lewandowski. We've seen him develop Aubameyang. Great young players. This move excites me even more. I just didn't think it's possible or something that Werner would even consider. But it looks like $67 million is all it's going to take, and that is 100% money that Liverpool should spend. Really exciting news here on the program, and for Real Madrid, bad news because I'm not sure who's out there and who's available for them to purchase to try to give them that extra edge against Barcelona. Although after what I saw from Barcelona, I'm not sure Real Madrid necessarily needs that extra edge right now over a team that made a managerial change and then looked pedestrian for most of the match against Granada. They held possession. Barcelona always holds possession. but they are leaps and bounds ahead of Granada. And the fact that a ball went off the post for the team in 10th in the Liga against Barcelona, and Barcelona needed Messi magic again to pull out a 1-0 victory, and they looked uninspired. It just, is Quique Setien really the answer here? I'm not sure why there was a managerial change. And this is something where it's hard to argue when a club or a franchise or a team does something like fire a manager. So we go back to an MLS example early in the season. Alan Koch, who managed FC Cincinnati to U.S. Open success and to early season success. He went on a 7-game scoreless streak, and FC Cincinnati goes ahead and fires Alan Koch. Quick decision, a decision that at the time I thought was mind-blowing. It didn't match. I thought you had an expansion team. You only had 244 days to put it together. You needed continuity, and although it wasn't working, you keep it with it. But then you read these stories of he's lost the locker room. It's a bad culture. Players don't want to listen to him. Players don't want to play for him. And when an organization or a club tells you that, it's really hard to say, oh, they don't know what they're talking about, until you see how they play after that manager leaves. And Barcelona just looked uninspired. I'm not sure changing a manager changes anything for FC Barcelona. That's just type of move that I think you stick with the guy. You have to put a belief in a manager so that he can put a system in and develop something like Jurgen Klopp has developed at Liverpool. And I just don't understand the move from Barcelona. But they say it's the best move. They did end up with a victory. Real Madrid might not need to add a striker to be able to win La Liga, because all Real Madrid needs to do is take care of their business as they normally do. Don't falter. I think Barcelona might falter once or twice. They'll just need that to happen. And then when El Clasico comes up, Real Madrid just needs to win that match. And I would favor Real Madrid over Barcelona in El Clasico as the rosters stand now, as the coaching stands now, where these teams are in terms of form, in terms of the feeling in my chest of how they're playing. It just feels like Real Madrid's league to lose. I think Real Madrid's the favorite. Especially after watching Barcelona this weekend, it feels like they're lacking. It feels like they don't have that connection at the top, that magic to win the league. But La Liga has been Barcelona's to win more years than not over the past decade, no matter the success Real Madrid has in Europe. Maybe Real Madrid will go on a Champions League run. Maybe that'll distract them from the main goal. But a shame that Real Madrid won't be able to add Timo Werner, it looks like, from most rumors, to be that. Because you add Timo Werner right now into Real Madrid, La Liga's over, in my opinion. It just feels over. They would have a frontline scorer. They'd be able to connect from the midfield to the attacking third. They'd have somebody that'd be able to finish at a high level, at a consistent level against the best competition in the world. And it becomes really difficult for Barcelona to overcome that. It would take Lionel Messi to be special again. How many times has a team that Messi's been on looked absolutely pathetic for 80 minutes, and then Messi just scores a magical goal and they win 1-0. That happens all the time. Argentina, you remember their run through the World Cup in 2014, it just felt like every match was 1-0 and Messi either hit a free kick or a beautiful goal, and that's all they needed. And Messi has done that so many times in his career, and that's where I can get the arguments that Ronaldo has had more help, Ronaldo has had better managers, Ronaldo hasn't been able to carry a team as much as Messi has been able to. So when you dive into that argument, I can see where you're coming from, because Messi did it again for Barcelona, and he is their only hope. If Messi has a beautiful last stretch of the season, plays the way we know Messi can play, then perhaps Barcelona can pull it out. But who's the better team? Who's in the better form? Who has more consistency at the managerial position? Who do I trust more? Right now it's Real Madrid in La Liga, but it should be a really interesting race moving forward. Exciting times, breaking news on the show. So much fun to get that notification on my phone. Premier League, watch out, because Liverpool might be the first team to get to 100 points. They might not lose a match this year, and then they might get one of the best, if not the best, young striker in the world right now in Timo Werner. Scary times for the rest of the Premier League. And it also dives into a conversation we had last week again of the gap that is widening between the top teams and the middle tier teams. And it might be happening in the Premier League right in front of their eyes. Liverpool if they can find a way, because the Premier League has never been that way, where there is 6-7 straight championships to one team. And a lot of these leagues haven't been that way, but we've seen it in the Bundesliga. We've seen it in Serie A. We've seen it in La Liga be two teams, Real Madrid and Barcelona. Those teams go on a run. But we really haven't seen it in the Premier League. Leicester City jumps up there. Man City wins it. Liverpool wins it. I think Liverpool won it this year. Chelsea always grabs one. United's competitive, right? It rotates between 4 or 5 teams. And that might end if Liverpool is able to dominate the transfer market, keep this type of culture. It might be one of those type of runs for Liverpool that they're setting up for. Scary stuff for the Premier League that Timo Werner has his eyes and wants to join Liverpool. After the win against Anfield, they look like they're flying. Hard to imagine them getting beat. Exciting times. We'll go ahead and step aside, take a break. On the other side of the break, we've got a lot more fun stuff for you. Bayern, big time win over Hertha Berlin, 4-0. I think they're back, but will it be enough to win the Bundesliga for the 8th straight time? We'll discuss that on the other side of the break. You're listening to the GSMC Soccer Podcast.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Big welcome back into the GSMC Soccer Podcast. Lucas Moore. And it's been a fun show. We had breaking news. Timo Werner would like to join Liverpool over the summer. $67 million is what it'll take, probably, for Liverpool to be able to get him from Leipzig. We'll see how that plays out moving into the summer. But that pretty much squashes any hope of Timo Werner and Real Madrid being a transfer move just before the Champions League round of 16 starts. One of those type of things where he joins and he elevates them to the top of the European competition. I thought that that's what was going to happen. It felt that way. It felt like Real Madrid was going to commit to it, and it just doesn't look like the interest is there for Werner. Good for him. You know, heading to a team that feels like it's his style. I think Liverpool fits him even better than Real Madrid does. I think Real Madrid would be an A fit. Liverpool is an A+ fit, especially with the German manager. It makes perfect sense for him to head to the Premier League. Schedule is strenuous, though, and that's one of those things that I worry about if you're a German national team fan about Timo Werner playing the strenuous schedule for Liverpool. Also making a change in the middle of the Euros, maybe be difficult for him. Maybe he'll lack focus with Germany in a tough group. But those are small questions, and I don't think there'll be much of a problem. Exciting stuff for Timo Werner. Exciting stuff for Liverpool. Speaking of Werner in the Bundesliga, RB Leipzig at the top right now of the Bundesliga at 40 points. Bayern Munich has jumped into second place, leaping over Dortmund, leaping over Mönchengladbach. Now at 36 points, Bayern Munich. Leipzig at 40 points. Mönchengladbach at 35. Dortmund at 33. And Bayern, 4-0 win against Jurgen Klinsmann's side. Great job, Jurgen. He taught Berlin what he taught the Americans. Well, let's park the bus. We're not really going to have any chances, but we're going to hold until Bayern scores. Bayern scores a beautiful Thomas Muller volley. And next thing you know, gates open up and Bayern Munich wins 4-0. And I think they're back. I think they're clicking. This team is chock full of talent. Just love the way they play. You have Coutinho, you have Muller, you have Perisic, Thiago, Goretzka, Lewandowski. I don't really like the back line. I don't like Davies necessarily as a type of front-line, top European left back. We'll see how he plays moving forward. Could be that type of guy, but he just isn't a Philipp Lahm type of character who we've seen at Bayern Munich. We've seen at playing that left back position for Bayern Munich. Benjamin Pavard on the right side, the Frenchman. He's talented. I love Boateng and Alaba in the middle. We'll see about that back line. But frontline attacking players for Bayern Munich, especially Lewandowski, there's so much talent there. I think they love their manager, Hansi Flick. They're playing really well for him. Getting Thomas Muller back in the lineup and involved is so important. That guy from Munich, you always need that type of guy on Bayern Munich. The natural-born German, the guy that's from that area, that is more of a heart and soul of the team. He fits really well in that role, and I love that Flick has made sure that Muller is in the lineup. I think he's really underrated because Muller has this lankiness about him, this somewhat lack of athleticism, but he's an excellent soccer player. Knows how to move, knows how to finish, is always in the right position. He's that German great. You know, he doesn't pop off the page like a classic Argentina player or a Spanish player where there's fancy footwork and beautiful skill and unbelievable speed. No, he just does every single little thing right, is in the right position all the time, is controlled, can pass, can cross, can finish. That's what Thomas Muller is. And him in the lineup consistently, being a leader on this team, is what I think is going to help Bayern Munich win this league. Now, Leipzig holding on to Timo Werner, it appears, throughout the rest of the season. That is important for RB Leipzig. And maybe Leipzig is going to go on a run and be the team that finally knocks off this 7-time defending. You believe that? 7-time defending German champions, Bayern Munich. I think it'll be 8 straight. It feels like they have the most talent, but Leipzig, they just have to continue to run through the bottom of the league. They cannot afford a slip up. Leipzig cannot afford a slip up because Bayern Munich's impressive performance, especially in the second half against Berlin, proves that this team is going to take care of business, right? Berlin, one of the bottom teams in the league, 14th. They're going to take care of business. They're going to beat Köln. They're going to beat Bremen, Dusseldorf. Don't worry about Bayern taking on those teams. Also, Bayern against Dortmund, feels like Bayern will have the advantage in that one. Dortmund always relying on young players. I think Bayern Munich's only competition is RB Leipzig in terms of who can beat them head-to-head. And that means Leipzig needs to make sure they don't falter against the bottom teams of the league. And they did a good job this week, 3-1 win against Union Berlin. If they don't falter against the bottom teams of the league, then it comes down to the matchup. Can you beat Bayern Munich head-to-head? And Leipzig certainly has enough talent in one match to defeat Bayern Munich. That's what this league is going to come down to because of Bayern's slow start. There's enough breathing room for RB Leipzig. As long as they take care of business at the bottom of the table and have an excellent run through the second half, they can maybe hold off Bayern Munich and win this, because they were impressive as well this week in RB Leipzig with the 3-1 win. And Timo Werner staying at least through the spring is exciting news for their fans. That's it. That's where the race will come down to. Mönchengladbach, I've seen them been in second and third place through the Hinrunde, but the Rückrunde is just not where they tend to thrive, and I just don't see them making a run. Dortmund, this is not a Dortmund team that's ready to win the Bundesliga. Maybe in a year. We saw a 19-year-old make his debut and score a hat trick for Dortmund this weekend. They're an exciting team, and I love Dortmund. It just doesn't feel like they're at the level right now of Leipzig and Bayern. So the Bundesliga feels to be a two-horse race moving forward. But to me, Bayern Munich, the quality will be too much. I think Leipzig will slip up against a team like Leverkusen or Wolfsburg. Frankfurt might get them. Schalke might get them. And it just doesn't feel like Bayern will fall to those teams down the stretch because they're rolling, because they believe in their manager, because there's positivity back in the Bayern camp. It feels like Bayern is going to win their 8th straight. That's what 538 is predicting. That's what it feels like, I think, in my gut in terms of watching these two teams this weekend. But that's the beautiful thing about the middle of the season here. There's going to be some interesting results over the next couple weeks. There'll be some upsets. There'll be some turning of eyes. There'll be some injuries. It'll be really interesting to see it play out. But it's good for the Bundesliga that we're 18 matches through and you're not 100% certain that Bayern Munich will win another title, although it might be headed that way anyway, much to the chagrin of nearly every German that isn't a Bayern Munich fan, because 8 straight titles, 8 straight years of the boys from München winning titles. Just makes anybody from Germany that isn't an FC Bayern fan, and I know this because of family, just makes them sick to their stomach. They don't like FC Bayern. They don't like that they buy the players. They feel like they're the New York Yankees, like New York Yankees plus, like a giant New York Yankees dominating German football, and they buy everybody. And yes, they have a little swag and cockiness about them. And it just, any German that's not a Bayern fan just doesn't enjoy it. And if it's 8 straight titles, it'll be remembered as the dark times. 8 straight years of Bayern Munich championships. But it'll be an interesting run down the stretch. Neuer looks in form. Bayern under Hansi Flick, they are a much different team than the team that fell 5-1 to Eintracht Frankfurt earlier in the season. We have one more segment to go. Ronaldo, a brace this weekend, 2 beautiful goals for Juventus in a win against Parma. The team around Ronaldo, not necessarily as good as his teams at Real Madrid, but is Ronaldo himself good enough to carry Juventus all the way to a Champions League title? We will discuss that on the other side of the break. You're listening to the GSMC Soccer Podcast.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back into the GSMC Soccer Podcast. I'm your host, Lucas Moore. Give us a follow at GSMC_soccer on Twitter. Check out our Facebook as well, GSMC Soccer. Great places to find all the information and all the stuff you need about the GSMC Soccer Podcast. Also, check out all the rest of the great podcasts on the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, Apple Podcast, wherever you can think about it. Find it. And it'll be there. And right now, Ronaldo is at the top of his game. Cristiano Ronaldo, so much fun to watch. He's just so good. I mean, I can't even describe how good he is. It's just, he looks so much better than everybody else on the field. It's unbelievable to watch. The way he moves, the speed, the type of focus that teams place on Cristiano Ronaldo. I was pointing this out when I was watching the match. You're watching Ronaldo go down the touchline. He's got 4 defenders around him. I mean, he's a gravity well. Everybody is focused on him, and it does not matter. He is so smooth, so smart, so soft on his touch, so clinical, so powerful. It's just a perfect combination. If you were to design a soccer player in the lab, I'm serious, it'd be Cristiano Ronaldo. Because he has the necessary speed, he has the necessary dribbling ability, he can finish equally with his left and right foot. He's smart, he knows how to utilize space, he's tall, he can smash down headers, he's great at free kicks, he's great at crossing. There isn't a thing this guy's not good at. And it's beautiful to watch. And he is carrying Juventus and will carry Juventus all the way to a Serie A title in Italy. And watching him this week, I get it was against Parma. I understand that. I understand that a mid-tier Serie A team isn't necessarily intimidating. But we've seen him do this against the best defenders in the world. We've seen him do this against the best teams in the world at the highest level, in the highest level of competition. And I think we're going to see it again. He just feels like he's on this path to prove himself. It's why he went to Juventus. It's why he didn't settle down at Real Madrid and say, I'll just stay here, win a couple more Champions League titles with all these great players and all this money and this great structure. No, I'm going to move somewhere that has been close to a Champions League title, that does have talent. I am not saying Juventus doesn't have talent. They have a very good lineup. Diabla, Ramsey's not bad. They have a talented team, but it's not Real Madrid. There's no Casemiro, there's no Cruz, there's no guys of that level on Juventus. It is really a Ronaldo-centric team. They will go as far as he takes them. The problem is he's playing at such a high level, and now a thing I'm really seeing with Ronaldo that has developed over time is he has just as much of athleticism, maybe 0.5% less athleticism, but he has so much experience. You can see the way he moves around the pitch, the way he threads his way through defenses, the way he learns to disappear. Listen, the best strikers in the world, the best goal scorers in the world, they know how to disappear. And it's so hard in other sports to disappear. In basketball, LeBron James never disappears. You never see LeBron go off the screen, sit back, and all the defenders forget about him, and then he gets a wide open dunk. No. Eyes are always on LeBron. In football, you cannot disappear. You line up in a formation, everybody sees you. But the beautiful thing about soccer is that all you have to do is just kind of start walking, and you let the play out. The defender's eyes get drawn, and then you just shift in the right position, and you predict how the defense will move. You predict how your teammates will move. And then all of a sudden, you're running free into the box, and you're a left back, and you've forgotten that the greatest goal scorer possibly of all time is right next to you and running by you free onto goal. And he has mastered that. He has mastered disappearing to where you forget he's even there. And then a burst of speed, a perfect cut to the exact right location, and a finish. He has mastered that. And it's this combination of athleticism, experience, that is making Cristiano Ronaldo possibly more deadly than he's ever been. I think we're going to see this in the Champions League. I cannot wait to watch him execute in the Champions League. And all Juventus needs to do is play good enough defense, 1 or 2 goals a match, and let Ronaldo score. Feed Ronaldo. He's going to nail some free kicks. There's a real chance that he drags Juventus all the way. That would be my favorite storyline of the Champions League. Liverpool winning it for back-to-back years with their absolute dominance would be an awesome storyline. Manchester City coming out of nowhere and taking these Premier League failures but flipping it into a Champions League run, that'd be a fun storyline because we really haven't seen them do it. Bayern Munich, after losing 5-1 to Eintracht Frankfurt, coming out of nowhere and winning the Champions League. Great storyline. There's a lot of great storylines potentially in the Champions League this year. But Cristiano Ronaldo, who right now many consider to be the second or third best player of all time, behind Messi and Maradona, many consider him there. If he goes to Juventus after winning the amount of Champions Leagues he won at Real Madrid, 3 out of 4 years, a three-peat at Real Madrid, going from that, going to Juventus, and dragging a team that is probably a tick lower than about everybody else at the top of the Champions League, dragging them to a Champions League title. Let's say he scores 6 goals, 7 goals, 8 goals from the round of 16 on. I think the reason that's such an intriguing storyline is because a run like that would cement him as the greatest soccer player ever. It'd be over. Discussion done. Because he would have done it in multiple places, multiple teams, at the highest level, and it would be most likely the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. So that's why it's so intriguing. Cristiano Ronaldo at Juventus. When he first made this move, I was disappointed. I kind of wanted to see him go back to the Premier League and dominate that again. I wanted to see him stay at Real Madrid, but now that he's doing the things he's doing with Juventus and scoring goals in 7 straight Serie A matches, and I just am so excited to see what he'll be able to do with this Juventus squad in the Champions League. Serious legacy points on the line for him in the month of February, March, and moving forward from the round of 16 to the quarterfinal. Exciting stuff, and it'll be an exciting Champions League moving forward, and an exciting Bundesliga race, exciting La Liga race. A lot of exciting stuff in the world of soccer. Perfect time, too, as this podcast really gets rolling. Exciting, exciting stuff. That's the end of our show. I hope you enjoyed the episode today. Please remember to like us on Facebook, GSMC Soccer. Follow us on Twitter, GSMC_soccer. Find us everywhere. Please rate this podcast, leave a review, and make sure to subscribe so that you can get the episode right when it comes out. To grab your listen of it, please check out all the podcasts on the GSMC Podcast Network. This has been the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. We appreciate you for listening, and we will see you next time.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.